Welcome to the Pipeliners Podcast, episode 447, sponsored by the American Petroleum Institute, driving safety, environmental protection, and sustainability across the natural gas and oil industry through world-class standards and safety programs. Since its formation as a standard-setting organization in 1919, API has developed more than 800 standards to enhance industry operations worldwide. Find out more about API at api.org.
The Pipeliners Podcast, where professionals, Bubba geeks, and industry insiders share their knowledge and experience about technology, projects, and pipeline operations. And now your host, Russel Treat.
Thanks for listening to the Pipeliners Podcast. I appreciate you taking the time, and to show that appreciation, we give away a customized Yeti tumbler to one listener every episode. This week, our winner is Joseph McDonald with Consumers Energy. Congratulations, Joseph. Your Yeti's on its way. To learn how you can win this prize, stick around till the end of the episode. This week, we're going to speak with Walter Nusbaum, who was keynote speaker at the recent API Pipeline Conference, who spoke about normalizing excellence. Hey, Walter, listen, thanks for being here at the API Pipeline Conference. We just came out of your keynote speech. You were talking about normalization of excellence. First question I want to ask you is, how did that become your life's mission?
Well, that's a great question. It's because I was so underperforming, and I talked about in there the importance of a mentor in people's lives to really get their mind right. And for me, I was fortunate at 21 to have a mentor that began to teach me about the importance of progress and excellence. And I was so easily just accepting average in my life and below average.
Right.
So at the age of 21 was really when this idea of pursuing excellence began to really come.
And you're an athlete, right?
I'm an athlete.
You're a college athlete?
Yeah.
How could you be a college athlete and not understand pursuit of excellence?
Yeah. It's the one dimension of my life that I actually was excellent.
It came naturally.
Yeah, but it didn't touch all my life. So the tagline is seeking excellence as a way of life.
Right.
What I did is I sought excellence in a domain of life.
Right.
But everything else I didn't touch. Literally nothing else did I touch. And so that, in that sense, my tennis was great, but the other areas of my life were not all that great.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So you went through 5 kind of key points.
Yeah.
And the first was that there's hazards out there, or there's trips, things that are just going to kind of get thrown at us that we might just be able to step around and ignore or whatever. And then there is, what was your point number 2?
Yeah, it's going to be violations.
Violations, which is when we allow that to stand.
That's right. We interact with a hazard, but you don't pay a price.
Right.
So it normalizes that, like, oh, it's okay to do it this way.
Yeah, that normalizes failure.
Exactly. Eventually,
right.
That's right.
Exactly. I mean, that is the natural human condition.
That's right.
And we will go there.
We will go there. That's right. That's why I called the third step the gift, because it's a small price you pay. It's an incident. It's a small incident.
Yeah, which we would call in safety management, we call a near miss.
A near miss, yeah.
Right.
So something small just happened, and thankfully, it should be enough to turn me around in my behavior. But if you don't, the next step is a serious setback.
Right.
Right, and then failure.
Right.
So everything hinges on normalization.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, on violations.
Yeah, I have one personal experience. You may not know about this, but A&M used to build this massive bonfire every year before they played the University of Texas. And I went to that every year until it fell.
I remember,
and if it had fallen when I was at A&M, the chances I was on it were probably 80% plus.
Wow.
Because I was always there at night, late, working the push. So I saw that in a few years leading up, and I'm like, they moved it from the drill field over here to the polo field, and that ground's soft, so it's not going to sit as well. But they're all engineers. Somebody's got to be looking at that.
Right.
And I feel so compelled. Like, I know I am not the only person who had that or a similar thought.
Right. And the thing is, even if you spoke up, let's say, and you knew it, the problem is, like, NASA knew about the O-rings.
Right.
They knew about them. But because there was no immediate consequence, and it was going to cost money to fix it, and they were in a budget restraint, period of time, they just said there's no need to. So you could even be the one who speaks up, and yet if somebody doesn't really have this mindset,
Right.
they're not going to buy in.
Well, and it becomes more complex. You're using the NASA example because that one voice is in the midst of a multitude of voices, and nothing's ever perfect, but we need to be good enough to fly. And
That's right.
how do I know when I'm missing the one that matters?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you don't. That's the enabling condition.
Right.
Right. And that's why when people try to predict or anticipate enabling conditions, it's a recipe for failure because these are truly randomized, unpredictable events that happen. All you can do is manage the latent errors because
Define latent error for me.
it's a error that is embedded in an action, but it's not easily seen. So for instance,
Yeah,
texting
those are the things that if we're working the near misses correctly, we will discover.
you'll discover. Yeah. A good example would be like if you're texting and driving.
Right.
The latent error is every time I take my eyes off the road for a few seconds, that distraction is the latent error. But every time I look back up and there's no problem, I normalize it thinking everything is fine.
Right.
So the latent error is always built in there. It's the distraction. But nobody sees that couple seconds as being significant enough to change the behavior.
Well, and a lot of times we don't see that latent error until there's an incident and we can unpack it.
That's right.
So, because they're all over the place.
That's right. And the enabling condition might be the car in front of me suddenly, a car in front of them hits their brakes, or
Right.
an animal runs across the road, they hit their brakes. Right at the time when I'm looking down, there's the enabling condition and the latent error meeting.
Right. And then that's when we have an incident.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
A great book on this, by the way, is a guy named Tony Kern. I don't know if you know him, but he wrote a book called Blue Threat. And it's a wonderful book that walks through this concept. And he talks about how red threats are the things outside of us that can cause harm. Blue threats are the self-inflicted wounds that we do to ourselves.
well, and if you study incidents and you look at first principles, what you know is it's us. We are the problem. we are the part of the system that fails.
Yes.
Right?
That's right.
And it's bound up in human psychology and normal ways of working and our personal limitations and all that kind of stuff. So
That's right.
yeah. So do you have a book?
I have several books. Yes, I've written several books. I wrote a book called Do You Have What It Takes?
Right.
It's the 7 traits of success. I've written a little book called The Sink, which I talked about up there.
Right.
About leaving things better. Number of books out there.
That was deep.
Wasn't
And
that
I
great?
loved your poem. We need to get a copy of that. We're going to put it on the website.
That's a great idea. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, do that, please.
Absolutely.
Basically, I'm going to try and summarize it, but fundamentally, the issue is that we tend to die every time. Well, you use the analogy of punching the sleep alarm.
The snooze,
The snooze on the alarm.
Right.
And what we ought to do is when the alarm goes off, just shake our eyes and jump out of bed.
Get out of bed.
Right? Get going.
right.
Otherwise, why'd you set the alarm?
Look, the reality is every day it's a mind-body battle.
Right.
We got to know that. And every time I let the body win, I'm creating the conditions for violations. That's the key.
Ooh, that's deep.
Yeah.
That's really deep. Well, listen, I wish we had a whole lot more time, but unfortunately, I've got to punch out.
I know you do,
I got to
yeah.
do a presentation.
Okay.
So,
Russell, thank you for
so much
having me.
coming
Yeah,
by. And
thank
look,
you.
Make sure and send us all your information. We'll link it up on the podcast.
Sounds great.
And I very much recommend you take a look at this gentleman's work. It's compelling.
Thank you very much. I'll get that poem to you.
All right, great.
Thank you, Russell.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Pipeliners Podcast and our conversation with Walter. Just a reminder before you go, you should register to win our customized Pipeliners Podcast Yeti tumbler. Simply visit pipelinepodcastnetwork.com/win and enter yourself in the drawing. If you have ideas, questions, or topics you'd be interested in, or if you'd like to be a guest, please let me know on the Contact Us page at pipelinepodcastnetwork.com or reach out to me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next week.